This Module 2 is on the history of diversity in the United States, and we're going to consider how history, specifically the history of the United States, has shaped the issues of diversity that we have to deal with today. We're all products, not only of our own upbringing, but indirectly of our parents and grandparents and the culture that was formed by our ancestors. Their attitudes and policies towards differences affect us today. There's a bit of an irony in the fact that if you go back far enough, we all came from a common ancestor. But ever since then, we have been diversifying. The history of racism and sexism and other forms of discrimination in our national development are historical facts that have shaped who we are and how we relate to one another. It's not a matter of whether you have a particular political ideology. These are the facts. This is our history. It is a part of who we are. In the Declaration of Independence, we said it was self-evident that all men are created equal with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But our Constitution and laws did not support that affirmation. First, the Constitution only mentioned men, and second was the unspoken assumption that men did not include blacks or Native Americans. Let's start by thinking about how we tend to react to differences in general. When you look back in the time before rapid transportation and communications, most people just interacted with those who lived in the same village with them, and those people were mostly like them. Those who were a part of one's own group were known and safe, while those who were outside one's group were unknown, dangerous, a threat. While there were lots of differences between individuals, we didn't see those differences very much among our own group members. We didn't see them to be threatening. Those external to our group were seen as a potential threat, even if they looked similar. We focused on their differences because they were not a part of our familiar group. Bottom line, different was dangerous. This was a part of human development for centuries. Different also was often bad, evil, not favored by the gods. And when some groups started to move outside their region, across countries, the encounters with others were inevitably ending in fighting and war. And when those other groups were less technologically advanced, it led to perceiving them as inferior and subject to conquering. This may not have happened all the time, but it certainly was a typical pattern. The colonization of the Americas was such an expansion. When the technologically advanced Europeans first came to the Americas and the less technologically developed indigenous populations, they viewed their own expansion, occupation, and domination as nothing more than logical steps, God ordained. They called it manifest or obvious destiny. There was no real question, and so the Spanish and the French and the English, and to some extent the Portuguese, invaded and occupied the Americas, eventually claiming most of the Western Hemisphere as their property. The English and French mostly in North America, and the Spanish and Portuguese mostly in Central and South America. The indigenous peoples were different. They looked different, talked different, worshiped different gods. They were technologically inferior, didn't have our education or knowledge as we knew it. They were therefore inferior and subject to domination. The Europeans felt entitled, and few questioned that entitlement.